They told you she was just a story to scare children. But stories don't leave physical evidence. And stories certainly don't build fences out of human bones. This is case number 003, the Baba Yaga Deception. Between 1950 and 1960, 12 children vanished in the Ural Mountains. Locals reported a structure that moved. Not a vehicle, a house. Local folklore identifies the subject as Baba Yaga, but this isn't a fairy tale. Our profile suggests a humanoid anomaly: female, advanced age, severe emaciation. Witnesses mention iron teeth. We suspect this isn't magic, but primitive prosthetics, or perhaps a metallic mutation of the jaw. They call her the Bony Leg. This indicates severe tissue atrophy, or perhaps she is not entirely biological. She does not hunt like a human. She hunts like a spider. But the most disturbing element is the location. We cannot pin it down on a map. Aerial reconnaissance has failed 3 times. Why? Because the target location moves. The legends say her hut stands on chicken legs. We treated this as metaphor. We were wrong. Tracks found in the mud suggest a massive biological transport system. The structure is not a house. It is a mobile nest. It mimics the trees, blends into the canopy, and relocates when compromised. It rotates to face the visitor, watching. Finally, the perimeter. Survivors describe a fence surrounding the zone. It is not made of wood. It is constructed of human femurs and skulls. Reports state the skulls glow at night. We believe this is either bioluminescence from decaying organic matter or a psychological warfare tactic to warn off intruders. We have exactly one verified account of a subject entering the exclusion zone and returning. The file is labeled Vasilisa. Local police reports from 1954 describe a young woman sent into the forest by her stepmother. The official reason was to fetch fire, likely a metaphor for fuel or energy. But her statement describes phenomena that defy standard physics. She claims the entity does not work alone. She described 3 distinct horsemen patrolling the perimeter. First, a rider in all white, on a white horse, passing at dawn. She called him My Bright Day. Second, a rider in red, passing at sunset, My Red Sun. And third, a rider in absolute black, vanishing into the night. We believe these are not men. They represent a control over the circadian rhythm of the forest. The entity known as Baba Yaga does not just live in the woods. She controls the passage of time within them. When the Black Rider passes, total darkness falls. No moonlight, no stars, just the void. Vasilisa's testimony gets stranger. She claims she carried a helper, a small doll given to her by her mother. She spoke to it. It whispered back. Psychologists labeled this as trauma-induced schizophrenia, but in our line of work, we know better. This doll was likely an intuition guide, a primitive danger sense that kept her alive when she approached the epicenter, the hut itself. She describes the structure spinning, not shifting, but physically rotating on its axis, grinding the earth beneath it. To enter, she had to give a voice command. Turn your back to the forest and your front to me. This confirms the structure is biomechanical. It responds to vocal frequency. It is a lock, and she had the key. The interrogation of the witness reveals the true purpose of the site. It is not a home. It is a processing center. Survivors are not killed immediately. They are put to work. The Baba Yaga issues impossible quotas. The witness describes being forced to separate poppy seeds from dirt, grain by grain, in a single night. In our analysis, this represents psychological breaking. It is a method of stripping away the ego, forcing the subject into a state of pure, mindless function. Fail the quota, and you become part of the perimeter fence. But the witness reported an anomaly. She claims she didn't do the work alone. She spoke of 3 pairs of hands that appeared from the shadows to assist her. We believe this refers to a localized spectral workforce, previous victims, perhaps, trapped in the structure's orbit, forced to serve the new arrival. The final test was not labor, but acquisition. She was given a skull from the fence, not a bone, but a weapon, a containment vessel for the strange radioactive fire that powers the hut. The subject, Vasilisa, was released from the exclusion zone. She did not leave empty-handed. She carried the containment vessel, the glowing skull. Witness reports state that as she walked back through the tree line, the eyes of the skull did not just glow, they tracked. Upon her return to the family residence, a thermal event occurred. The stepmother and her daughters, the primary antagonists in this case, were found incinerated. There was no accelerant, no matches, just piles of ash in the center of the living room, and the skull sitting on the table, its light extinguished. Forensics suggest high-dosage radiation or concentrated thermal projection. The skull looked at them, and they ceased to exist. Following the incident, Vasilisa buried the weapon in the garden and vanished. Rumors place her in the city, working in textiles, blending in. A sleeper agent created by the forest, hiding in plain sight. Before we seal this file, we have to look at the paperwork, the deep archive. Because the suspect known as Baba Yaga didn't just appear out of thin air. She has a paper trail, if you know where to look. First, the alias. Baba is simple enough in the Slavic tongues. Grandmother, old woman. But Yaga? That's where the file gets corrupted. Some linguists link it to old Proto-Slavic roots for pain or horror. Others trace it to snake-like deities. It's not a name, it's a warning label. Official records don't mention her until 1755 in Mikhail Lomonosov's Russian grammar, but the oral testimony goes back centuries further. The theory? She wasn't always a villain. Before the church arrived, before the borders were drawn, she might have been a goddess. A fertility figure, a Mother Earth archetype. But when the new religion took over, the old gods didn't die, they were demoted. The Great Mother became the Wicked Witch. The giver of life became the eater of children. It's the oldest trick in the book. Demonize the competition. And the hut? That's not just a fairy tale nightmare. It's evidence of origin. We've seen similar structures in the Siberian archives. Finno-Ugric tribes building storage caches on tree stumps to keep predators out. Or worse, ancient burial rites. Coffins raised on posts to keep the dead away from the frozen ground. That house isn't a home, detective. It's a tomb on stilts. She is a relic of a time when the forest was the only law that mattered. This concludes the file on Baba Yaga. It is not a story about a witch. It is a warning about a biological weapons system operating in the deep taiga. If you see a hut standing on bird legs, do not approach. You may not have the protocol to survive. Case number 003 is now closed. Stay paranoid. This is PolskiLore, cutting feed.